I'd like to move more into a discussion of some other aspects of our presence in terms of Latino culture. We have seen, I've talked about comic books, I've talked about Barbie dolls, I've talked a little bit about some football, Latinos in the NFL, right? That is to say, when we're talking about the shaping, interpreting, consuming of culture, we have to talk about all aspects of culture and our presence in that shaping, in that transforming. And that this is constantly working. Another area where we're starting to see a more interesting presence of Latinos is, in fact, in the arena of video games. It used to be, when video games first became popular, and the new platforms made video games much more, say, realistic, that Latinos were very much background. They were part of the street life, the urban, usually the urban underworld life. We were very much background figures, part of the background landscape. Increasingly, we're seeing Latinos in video games even that are playable characters. And in some of these video games, like Gears of War, the Grand Theft Auto Ballad of Gay Tony, we are actually playable characters, playable avatars that have an interesting backstory. So yes, Dominique Santiago of Gears of War is a soldier and it's a shooter game, but we have intercut into that game a sequence that gives his character the most interesting emotional background. It's his wife who's kidnapped. There's a backstory given. And in fact, if you look at video game blogs, you'll see that Dom Santiago, the Latino character, of all the characters in Gears of War, is the one that video game players feel most sympathetic to. That is to say, we're seeing our presence in all cultural phenomena that make up this thing called the mainstream. The mainstream itself, right, being changed by our presence. Again, getting me back to the point that we cannot talk about a mainstream versus Latino, because the Latino is very much shaping that mainstream. Keep in mind, there are games online, like Ethnic Cleansing, where you play a character that is a white Aryan who is responsible for shooting undocumented Latinos crossing the border. So while we are seeing a rich variation in this distillation and recreation in the form of cultural phenomena inclusive of video games, we are also seeing not just stereotypical recreations, but willfully racist recreations that are out there in the culture at large.